Hi everyone. In today's video, I wanted to talk about releasing religious conditioning. This is something that is kind of a lifelong crusade of mine, and I find often in my work that a lot of people who connect with me are also either integrating past religious experiences or in fact have experienced detrimental experiences, for lack of a better term on my part, due to religious conditioning and the experience of religion in their lives as children, most especially. So I want to just share a little bit first about kind of why I feel like I'm uniquely suited to discussing this. So I was raised in a cult. I was raised in a very strict form of Jehovah's Witness. And I grew up in that religion, and it was extremely immersive. You didn't have anyone in your life who wasn't a part of the religion. I spent over 70 hours a month each month knocking on people's doors, proselytizing as a little kid, up until I left as in my late teens. And I have spent and will continue to spend my life integrating and healing from that experience. So I want to talk about in this video how we can start to release the religious conditioning. So in this video, I'm not really talking about like waking up to realizing that you're not in resonance with what you've been taught you should believe or what you're expected to believe and live from a religious point of view. In this video, I'm going to talk about ways in which you can start to heal that wound, And I use the word integrate a lot, and I do that with intention. There's something very important to me about that idea, or what comes to mind when you hear the word integration. So it's not like a one and done, heal it and I'm over this issue. It's much more a feeling with integration about coming to awareness and honoring, and then bringing those pieces of oneself kind of back into oneself. I almost said the fold, but I mean, within yourself. So I like that word integration as opposed to just like healing and moving on from it, because if you have been as a child raised in a very strictly religious household or dealt with these kind of ideas and beliefs and parents who are oppressive, and again, I understand that at the time those individuals thought they were doing the best that they could for everyone, but when you've had that kind of experience, you have to almost de-brainwash yourself. You have to like unfuck your mind. And then it's like something that you always, it's like exercising, right? Like it's something that you have to maintain and pay attention to and keep up with, right? And so in the same way, if you've dealt with a serious level of religious conditioning or brainwashing as a young child, or been in an oppressive or abusive situation, I think the most important thing that I can say first and foremost to you is don't be hard on yourself for not being able to like just focus on it one time and move forward. And we kind of have this idea like you're healed, it's all set, you never have to work on this again, you never have to take care of this again or work on these pieces. And I think it's important to know that this is something that you're always going to practice maintenance on as you go through the rest of your life experience. So for a lot of us who have dealt with this type of conditioning, shame and fear were used a great deal to, get you to work in line with or accept the core beliefs of the specific religion or the way in which you should live your life, right? So what I've found first and foremost with religions, at least in my experience, has been that a lot of it operates on fear and shame. Especially if you were made to feel less than or ashamed for your gender, for who you felt you truly were inside, your sexual orientation, your, the color of your skin, whatever it is in alignment with like if there was a situation created where you were meant to feel a sense of shame for that. So like, especially for myself, women are considered in the religion I grew up in to be less than men, to not be as intelligent, to have to let the men take the lead, and to not speak up against or speak out against men. Men were the first made by God, and the most important, the most gifted. Women were lesser than, and in a sense connected to the fall from grace and sin, original sin with Satan. So, and we could go across the board for anyone who identifies outside of traditional religious beliefs. There's often a sense of shame, right, that comes up. The other piece that happens with shame is feeling guilty for not being able to line up with the beliefs that you've been told are the truth, or are what you should be following and believing and living. So there's shame that happens on multiple layers with religion, and I really do feel like it's used very effectively to get a group of people to do what you want. So when you have decided that you are unplugging, and remember, I'm focusing on this video, not how you decide, but after you've decided that you're going to unplug from this religious conditioning. One of the biggest things that it took me a few years of really working with, and I still to this day have to practice maintenance on this, is releasing the shame that comes along with being who you are, intrinsically who you are, and then not choosing to line up with the religious beliefs anymore. Because what is also taught, and this goes into the fear piece, is that if you don't do what you're told or what you're supposed to do to be in God's good graces, then you will be punished. You may die and not have a chance of ever being resurrected or a part of eternal life, if you grew up in the religion I did, or you may go to hell. If you're in a different religion or cult, that you decided to unplug from, or it could be, any other way in which punishment ensues for those followers who do not continue to keep the faith and to practice the tenets of the religion. So there's this multi-layered piece that happens with shame. So it's a shame of being who you are, and the shame for unplugging and choosing not to believe this as your truth. So the first thing I can recommend for you as you start to unplug is to do a lot of work around self-worth and valuing yourself, and starting to find your inner voice and really listening to that. So, and I'm gonna give you some tips along with this if you found this video because you're trying to step into this process, or you're in a place on your journey where you're struggling with experiencing healing and integration around this. So the number one most effective way that I've found to start healing my own wounds around self-worth has a lot to do with journaling, and actually like journaling out my feelings about myself, why I may feel that way, and being really brutally honest in my journaling on the page, in the pages of my journal about where I'm at and how I feel. And then I will often, because I do work with tarot and oracle cards on a daily basis, but you don't have to use tarot and oracle for this if you're not called to, then I'll draw cards to give me some insight into what my truth actually is, as opposed to the voices that I grew up with that are in my head, and that are pushing this kind of doctrine of shame for me on any given day, right? So I'll do a lot of journaling, just really like emotional vomiting on the pages with through the written word about what's inside of me and how I feel. And then I will do card work, or I will journey with deity or a guide to help me to allow myself to see the light within myself and to heal and to allow expression of that innate goodness, finding the innate goodness within me again, instead of choosing to believe that I'm worthless and have no value, and something evil. So that's a very important way to start to unplug, is to really find a healthy way for you to brutally, honestly express the sense and experience and level of shame within yourself when this comes up, and then start to shift that either through dialogue or through card work if you're drawn to card work, or meditative practice that allows you to start opening up to the self-worth within you. Unfortunately, when you've dealt with this level of conditioning, it's not as simple as go treat yourself, self-care, and you feel better. That doesn't deal with what's underneath. And what's underneath is the sense of deep shame for being who you are. Whether, again, that's because a part of you is seen as unholy by the religion, or just because you've decided that you don't resonate with these truths that the religion is teaching, okay? And if there's a lot of different layers there for you, and that's all tied in together, then there's going to be different levels and layers of shame that you're working at on peeling and healing and integrating. So now again, I want to reiterate for you, I still have to do this to this day. And I left the religion I grew up in for the final time in my early 20s, and I am now 37. So, and I have, and when I left from there forward, have been very consciously working on healing these wounds. So this aspect of being able to really express your truth, your feelings, and especially around this word shame and this level of fear. So you can also journal about the fear you feel. Perhaps if you feel a great deal of fear around being punished, or that maybe you're wrong and God's going to punish you for not following the tenets of the religion at the end of your life. This is something that you can also work with that brutal honesty for. And this is where you may find that working with a therapist or someone you really trust that you can have dialogue with can be very helpful in this process. If that is not accessible to you, then you always have the power of journaling and the power of journeying or doing meditative walks with your guides to assist you in opening up to these layers, okay? So another piece, so we've talked about the shame and fear piece that ends up coming up, and I think is like very, very important to deal with first and foremost. Another piece to this is you can look for affirmation for yourself that you are worthy, and that who you are is intrinsically good and has value. Now you can look outside of you for this, at the people who you may still have in your life. For some of us who leave, we have absolutely no one when we leave, and this is very real, especially if you grew up in a situation similar to what I did, where your entire family disowns you because you grew up in the religion and you didn't go to college or you didn't have any extracurricular schooling. All of your friends are in the religion. You probably work for someone who's in the religion. And so you're walking away from everything that has to do with security, right? So if you have people in your life at this time, when you start to do this unplugging work, where you can, ask them for validation, honest validation about qualities that they find appealing within you, or loving or lovable or worthy. And that can help you start to shift for yourself your perspective of yourself as something worthless or without value or someone who's doing something wrong, into seeing the good that you do bring to others, the good that you do bring to your life as well as to yourself. Now, in me saying that, I don't want you to look for all of your validation from people around you. That's not healthy either. But as you're starting to unplug from this, it can be helpful just to get some feedback from people that you trust about your own good qualities. And that can help you to start to see that just because you're not lining up with something any longer, or because you're choosing not to line up with something that's been handed down to you or you've been told you should do, it doesn't mean you don't have any value in that you're a bad person. It's quite the opposite, in fact. The other piece that I think is an important part of the unplugging is to allow yourself to be very compassionate towards yourself and towards others. Part of the power of going through an experience that may be similar to growing up in a cult or a very strict religious situation, etc., or spending a serious amount of time in that type of an abusive energy, is that you do have more compassion for all beings, because you can see how we get tripped up, how we get caught up into things, how difficult it is to change, to have enough bravery to make a change in our life. And we see that reflected in the people around us. And so we often have a great deal of compassion for others. So part of this experience will be, as you start to unplug for yourself, to allow yourself to express that compassion towards yourself. So if you are really struggling with being out in public or getting outside and doing the things that normal people do. Normal people, I'm air quoting that. Regular everyday activities seem to be tough for you, and you kind of have to bring it back to basics while you're at the beginning of this integration and healing process. You want to express and offer yourself compassion for that. Don't push yourself too far. For a lot of us, when we unplug, it's like all of our nerve endings are raw and exposed, and we feel like really, really super vulnerable. So expressing compassion towards yourself and discovering healthy boundaries are also very important steps as part of this process. And so I just want to talk really briefly about boundaries here. I'm not going to go too far in depth, but I do want to at least give you a jumping off point, and then you can do research on your own after this if you found this video because you're trying to take steps away from a religion or release religious conditioning for yourself. So opening up to expressing and having healthy boundaries. If you were raised in an environment where you were taught that to express a no, that wasn't in alignment with your religious beliefs or the head of the household, if you grew up in an environment like I did, etc. If you were raised that you're not allowed to have a no, the first thing you have to do is start allowing yourself to say no and explore boundaries for yourself. So, and you have to come back to compassion and be really gentle with yourself through this process. It's something that, again, I at 37, having been out of the religion I grew up in for a very long time, still have to work on boundaries every single day. Be gentle with yourself and start by saying no where you feel safe to. So maybe it's as simple as like, I don't want that type of ice cream tonight, I want something else. Or no, I don't want to come over to your house, I need time to myself right now. Start to explore ways in which you can say no in smaller areas so that you can open up to having healthier boundaries and saying no in larger things as well. If you were taught that the word no isn't allowed to be in your vocabulary, this is something that you have to be gentle with yourself through. So start in small ways. Again, dialogue or journal or share with another person or in some way express for yourself what your needs actually are. Part of this process is also about finding out what you actually like and what you don't, or what's a no or a yes for you in the first place. And then you can start expressing that as you move around in your world and your reality. So I would offer to you to start looking at that, looking at what you actually like. You know, this piece you can look at as an adventure. And I really have enjoyed doing this. And it was a very beautiful and healthy part of the releasing process for me when I first started on my own solitary spiritual journey, was to discover what I liked and what I didn't like. So things that I would never have been allowed to touch, like tarot, like cards, like divination, crystals, energy work, even music, clothing, makeup, as you guys all know. I view that as a form of self-expression and art. Various artists and art movements and books. Like, have fun exploring and trying things out and see what you resonate with and see what you don't. That piece can be adventurous, and that's going to give you clarity on your yeses and your nos. And you may even have to, before you say no to someone, prepare for yourself mentally how you want to say that. I always end up, still to this day, giving too much information. No is allowed to just be no. You don't always have to explain your no. You can say no and that can be it. So, but sometimes preparing mentally ahead of time can allow us to be able to express the no when it feels really difficult for us to even say it out loud. So this is something, and you can let people know too, you know, if you feel nervous about that, guys, I need to let you know I'm working on my boundaries right now and I need to say no to this. And if you have supportive people around you, they will be more than happy to say, I'm so proud of you for saying no when you felt called to, and then leaving it there, not expecting you to explain yourself or, you know, telling you that absolutely no is not allowed here in this situation. So again, you want to choose people that are supportive of you to express this truth with. The other piece along, so we have this adventurous piece, this exciting piece of like getting to know who you are and trying new things. If you grew up like I did, you have a whole world to explore as an adult as you start to do this work. And so that's actually really exciting. So be adventurous. have fun, explore, get to know who you are. And then the other piece that I want to share in this video as a beginning conversation to opening up to releasing religious conditioning, because this is something that's very important to me. I know how important it was to me and for me to release my religious conditioning from childhood, and I still work with that. And I want to be able to offer support to others out there like myself who are trying to release it. So we're forgiving ourselves, loving ourselves, releasing shame and fear. And part of that is by looking at just how deep that shame and fear goes for us. We're doing some type of work either in therapy or for ourselves or with another person that we trust around really honest dialogue for ourselves. And we're asking questions, we're getting to know who we are, and we're exploring having healthy boundaries. We're also allowing ourselves to be who we are and exploring and figuring out who that is. So you don't have to have the answer of who you are when you leave a religion. Well, I left, such and such religion, and now I'm this and I'm doing this and I identify as this. You don't have to have those answers right away or ever. Let that be an adventure, a journey that unfolds that you explore. The final piece that I want to talk about in this video is question everything. This was so helpful for me as a very young child, as I was watching my parents and realizing that I didn't agree with it, just at a core fundamental level, what was coming out of their mouth and the church's mouth. There were things that I knew right away at 7 or 8, like just because someone is gay does not make them bad. And I remember very clearly that feeling when that was taught from the platform of the congregation that my family attended, how I distinctly felt deep within me at my core the wrongness of that teaching. So part of releasing the conditioning is questioning everything. So at that age, I started questioning automatically, and that's one example in a whole slew of things that came up in that religious environment. But I remember hearing energies talking to me at that time and in that space, very clearly saying to me, question it, question everything, question. Don't accept that there's one truth. So anything that comes up for you that is like something that you grew up with as being wrong, like for me would be just as to give you a solid example, let's say you couldn't listen to specific type of music, right? Instead of when that thought comes up in your mind as you're releasing conditioning, like, and whatever that's in regards to, maybe it's that you can't believe that the soul lives on after death, right? Or that your dead loved ones could speak to you from beyond, right? So it could apply as simple as music, as intense and deep as life after death, etc. You can look at and unpack and question for yourself, well, why was I taught that? What is the root of that? And typically I'll come back to shame or fear being at the root of that personally for myself and those teachings. And then I'll start to research, see what else is out there, and then dialogue and question within myself what I choose to believe about this, how I choose to think about this. And I have found that to be one of the most empowering things to do on my path for myself. And I do it all the time, even in regards to things that I actually believe now. I've talked a lot on this channel about how I firmly feel that there is no one truth. And so I'm always questioning and looking underneath things and exploring and researching and sitting with what I feel about any given subject or idea or belief. This can really help you, first of all, to have a sense of humor and to take things lightly, because it's like, well, I can't fuck this up if there's no one truth. And why is this person choosing to believe this? Or why does this religion state this? And what do I think about it? Let me sit with that. Let me explore that. It lightens it up. It lets it be a little bit humorous for yourself. And then you can look at yourself as that Knight of Swords adventurous energy, kind of exploring and seeing and unpacking, and then sitting for you with yourself in regards to what you actually feel about it. So there's a lot of not just adventure, but like an unpacking that you can do in a way that doesn't feel as heavy as shadow work necessarily around, well, why is that so? Question everything. Question it. And then, document that if you feel like you want to. Journal about it. Write down part of the process for yourself. Come back to those questions that really served you as you're releasing these beliefs or ideas and finding a way to not just survive in the outside world, but to thrive. So I found that to be very helpful and an important part of the process for myself as well. So I'm going to leave this first video in this series here at this place. If you found the video because you're trying to release religious conditioning or dogma or a painful religious upbringing at this time on your journey, like, sit with what we've discussed here in this video. Again, take your time, be gentle, don't push yourself, and be compassionate with yourself. Most important as part of this process is releasing the layers of shame and the belief that you're bad, intrinsically bad, because you don't believe something that you were told only good people believe. A lot of what happens in these type of environments too is othering, because, if you're in the fold and you're doing what you're told, you're good, but if you're not, then you're othered and you're evil and you're bad and you should be, kept separate and denied and mocked and repudiated. So when you start to, you have to honor that you're going to be in a space of other to the community that still accepts those beliefs as true. But you don't want to take on that sense of shame and fear that's being inculcated in the group in regards to your ability to see beyond believing something just for a sense of connection, which is what's happening with a lot of people in these detrimental environments. Now, with me saying that, I'm not condemning all religions. I'm talking about abusive, painful, difficult religious situations. Okay, so I want to be very clear about that. I'm not condemning all religions, but I am talking about these types of very toxic, abusive environments where under the umbrella of religion and doing good, people are abused. Okay, and brainwashed, for real. It's real. And so, the last thing I would say in regards to this is you're going to find that you are unique and different from a lot of people that you come across if you've been raised in an environment like this. And again, as part of that other thing that happens, or kind of being separate from the crowd, being different, I really encourage you to embrace it, to let your freak flag fly, to just be who you are, and to honor that you're not necessarily going to be, look, talk, think, feel like everybody else or anybody else. But you can really be truthful to yourself, and you can hold yourself in a space of authenticity that, lets you sleep really good at night, instead of feeling like you've done something wrong and you're inherently evil, as perhaps the religion you grew up in would like you to think, or the religion that you took on due to a relationship or as a young adult or at whatever time in your life you came to it would like you to think. So these are some thoughts on me for releasing religious conditioning. There will be further videos in the series when it feels appropriate to share. But I just wanted to kind of be in this space with those of you who are on this journey right now as well. I've had a lot of people this year come through for readings or connect with me who are trying to release various forms of cult or religious conditioning. And I really want everyone to feel that there's a space for them to be heard, and that they have tips and tricks and tools on their journey to be able to live the life that they want to. And to be able to feel good about themselves and to love themselves as well as others in a way that's healthy and creates a sense of stability, groundedness, and connection to the divine in their life. So, as always, I am sending you much love and many blessings. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.